and welcome to our Future of Work series, all around the theme of intelligent workplaces. Now, we all know that the pandemic has completely changed the way we work. Most of us have gone into a remote working mode, and what we have found is that has been a very successful way for us to collaborate. But the pandemic has also changed the way office environments are working now and are going to work in the future. Neither of these environments are going to go away. What we are going to see is a blended hybrid mode between these two. The question is how can we make sure this is a frictionless experience no matter where I work? And what insights and data can I consume in order to optimize my real estate at my offices? We've got a jam-packed agenda today, and there are 4 sessions we're going to cover. The first is with David Geringer, who is from Dimensional Research. He's going to show us a new research study just put out today that goes into what we are finding from this new world we live in around remote work, what we can expect when we start to go back into the office, and how do we blend those two worlds together to have a frictionless experience, and the data and the insights that are going to be needed in order to make the best decisions to optimize that office space. Our second session is going to be a panel discussion. We're going to talk to a variety of folks from Cisco, from Memory Research, as well as from IBM to understand their learnings, their best practices, and what they're seeing about how we can implement intelligence into the workplace in order to make better decisions and to remove frictions that our employees might have. Now, third, we're going to talk to Sandeep Mehra, who is the Vice President and General Manager of Cisco Webex Rooms. And he's going to talk to us about a blueprint around the hybrid workplace and what we can do to transform organizations to provide a better workplace experience for their employees. And last, in our 4th section, we're going to go to the team in Oslo. They're going to talk to us about a variety of new solutions introduced today from Cisco to help drive and implement this concept of intelligent workplaces that can help us move forward in this blended work environment that we live in today. We've got a lot to cover. I'm excited to be with you and to be your host, and I'm excited to talk to each of these individuals in this session today. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first session of this Future of Work event on intelligent workplaces. I'm really excited to kick off today's event by looking at a new global workforce trends research study that was just published by Dimensional Research. And joining me to talk about this new research study is David Geringer, who is the research principal at Dimensional Research. David, welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
So David, maybe tell us a little bit about Dimensional Research and what you guys do.
Sure. So Dimensional Research has been around 15 years, and we are a high-tech research company that focuses entirely on the research sector, helping companies that either create and market and sell research or the end users of research.
Great. Now, I'm excited to get into this research study in particular, and maybe you can kind of set up and talk a little bit about this research. But there's a lot of questions about what to do post pandemic, how the world of work has changed, remote work, working in the office, and so forth. You guys have done this global research study. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the methodology and the goals as you see here on this slide about what you guys were able to do in finding and looking at this research.
Certainly. As you said, we really wanted to look at the pre and post work environment of how we think that COVID is going to really affect the work environment going forward and really change what's occurring. In order for that research to really be effective and applicable, we had to get a 360-degree view. And that means that we needed to get not only the workers that are going to be showing up into the office but we needed to get those that were responsible, such as IT, HR, executives, for changing and being responsible for those work environments so that we get that nice view of what is the change. You'll notice that in this research, we had 1,569 participants globally. I do want to go through just a few of the slides to show who participated in this research, because it's always very valuable to understand who participated, because it helps us with the applicability and the accuracy understanding. So we see that we've got companies at all sizes. We see that we have industries from technology all the way down to pharmaceutical and hospitality. We also see that we have a large number of different roles, as we talked about, those that implement and use technology at the top, but all the other roles that we want to see in a company, either in management positions, executive positions, or frontline, so that we're getting that 360 view of what it is to work in these environments, but also the responsibility of those that have to provide it. You'll notice it is a global survey, including translations that we did for China, and that we got a good range of the age of the participants so that we're not biasing the survey in any way. And this gives us great confidence that the research that we talk about is a really global representation of what we should expect as the post-pandemic work environment.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this, and so this is really good to understand that all the different continents that are represented here and global in nature. We know that nearly overnight we all shifted to remote work. I should say most people shifted to a remote work environment. Not everybody, but a lot of industries were affected by that. Now that we've been doing it for a few months, not everyone has gone back to an office. Some have kind of it's a mixed environment. But since we've been working remotely for so long, what are people's experiences with that, and do we expect that trend to continue? What does the data tell us?
Yeah, the data is pretty clear, and something that we may intrinsically know, which is how often people are going to be working from home. And here we see that nearly 60% of people are going to be working from home 8 or more days each month. So this trend is something that's going to continue, and what they expect to occur once the pandemic is over. I think it's also interesting to look at the nearly 36% of the people, those are the two bars, the yellow bars on the right-hand side, represents that people will be working from home more than half the time going forward. And this is, and you can kind of look at the blues going down and the yellows going up. And I think this intrinsically maps to what people believe is going on. But this is a confirmation, not just by what people think, but by those that are managing the companies and what they're expecting to employ as kind of a work environment. The other thing that we really want to know, and I think this is important because a lot of workers and a lot of companies were thrown into this environment and they had very little chance to prepare for it. And so what's resulted, unfortunately, is that about 98% of those that we surveyed indicated that they're frustrated with some of their meeting experiences at home. So they've been forced to adopt this technology and this approach and working from home, and it's not all gone smoothly. And a lot of what we see here, the big 77% in the middle, represents, what technology are people using? And a lot of people are using, laptops to represent, the video and other technologies they need to facilitate it. So it's a really, hey, you need to work from home, you got to use what you got. And that's generating some of these experiences. But we asked about the opportunity of whether or not they felt that this is just a bad experience that's going to continue, or whether or not they believe that they can improve their experience and their productivity from home. And a lot of their answers centered around intelligent collaboration and devices, meaning I need better devices that are going to help me work from home more efficiently and more easily and allow me to be more productive.
Interesting findings on this remote work, and it's going to continue, as you mentioned before, but there will be some people who eventually start going back to the office, part-time, full-time, kind of a more flexible work environment. So talk to me about that and returning to the office. What did the research find as far as how people feel about returning back to the office, and what businesses are doing to make sure that that's a good experience for those employees?
Yeah, absolutely. It's inevitable that people will be returning to the office. It's going to be mandated in a lot of ways, by the way. work gets done. But what's important to walk away with is, in general, 95% of the people, that we read about, perhaps in contrast to what you may hear in social media or other vocal groups, 95% of people are uncomfortable returning to the office. And they have shared a number of things that make them particularly uncomfortable, such as sharing touch devices or riding the elevator with too many people, having to share a desk, not knowing when things were clean. So a lot of these get back to the continuing concern about the spread and the contagious nature of COVID-19. So that's really what has a lot of people fearful about returning to the office. And so, as part of the research, it's always important to ask people, are there things that will make you comfortable, and how comfortable will you be? Or is this just a latent fear that companies are going to have to deal with? And I think the great news from the study is that 94% of the people said that technology and things that are done in the work environment will make them feel comfortable. So there's an avenue and an opportunity for companies to make sure that the workers returning to the office can feel safe. And a lot of these things get into how technology can help. And so we see right at the top, tied at the top, the ability to display digital signage. And this is important so that we can tell the employees, hey, this room has been cleaned, or hey, there's a big announcement, or hey, there's too many people in this room. So it's the ability to use signage to deliver information in a real-time kind of situation to help keep the worker safe. But it also delivers value to the company and understanding how devices are used, how desks are being used, what the occupancy is, what the environmental conditions, such as dust and temperature and all these other types of things, to keep the employees safe. So we see an opportunity here for the employees to feel comfortable coming back to work, but it's also going to provide a lot of information and opportunity to the companies to optimize their work environment and provide a safer, better working environment.
This is really interesting. I think anyone who wants to go back to the office is expecting a change, and what we're seeing here is the office isn't going to completely ever go away. There's going to be time for remote work. There's going to be time for going into the office. That added flexibility will probably increase, which is fantastic. But how are businesses looking now at the office space and decisions that they have to make as well? What do you see from the research there?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity, and there's a couple things that we saw in the research to see, what are the companies going to do? And so we certainly know from an economic standpoint, a lot of companies are very worried about what the pandemic has had about to their workforce and to customers. And so what are companies actually going to do? And we grabbed a couple results here and we charted them by company size to kind of point out a couple things. One is there is a big trend. We've talked about so many people from working from home, and it really delivers an opportunity for companies to capture monetary savings and downsize their offices. This creates, since less employees are going to be there, this creates an opportunity for them to create savings and adapt to the changing work environment. But it also shows an increase in flexibility in work hours, which is continuing to confirm the research we saw earlier about people working from home. So the work environment is going to substantially change as a result of COVID. When people give up real estate or reuse or repurpose space that they have, it's going to change the way that companies do it. And a lot of times we think that small companies are very flexible, but here you can see a similar trend across of it, but it's led by the largest companies. They're being the most aggressive about creating smaller spaces and saving money and creating more flexibility. But we did ask employees as they do return to the office, were they having frustrations? So this continues this opportunity that COVID is a big change, but if you're making changes to your environment, you're changing the size of your real estate, you're making these changes, are there other things that you can anticipate and rectify to make your work environment even better? So this is one of those catalysts for change and opportunity. And we see a lot of things that frustrated people. As in fact, 89% of the people stated that they were actually frustrated by items in the office. And this gives an opportunity, as we talked about, kind of collaboration technology to help rectify some of these. And some of these things are getting meeting equipment to work. And if we think about how many people are working, and we've talked about those meetings, this becomes a big productivity and frustration impact. But we also have the challenges of discovering meeting rooms were booked, aren't being used, trying to find people, which is going to become a bigger issue. If you're going to an office that's been changed or downsized or moved, finding out where things are and how to be more efficient in the office is going to be a bigger issue than perhaps even those who took the survey would see when they are back to returning to the office. So we do see there's a lot of opportunity to change things that have frustrated workers in the past.
You know, I look at this and I think we all can easily relate to some of these frustrations in the office. Getting the meeting equipment to work and the time that is spent to get that thing on. There's like 3 remotes in the room. Which one does which? And then once I get it working, I see participants on the other side, or even if I'm just sharing content in a room, how easily can I get that to happen? Very often too, every room has different technology. It's hard to figure out what technology is working or similar experience in each of those different rooms, and what isn't booked from a meeting room perspective. People change meeting rooms all the time, and so making sure that's an easy and seamless process. These all make sense as far as the pains that people see. Curious though, so this is the new world that we're living in, right? Hybrid workplaces. And that's what we're going to be experiencing going forward. How do we better prepare for this new reality that we're facing around the hybrid work environment that we might be in, and to make it a better experience?
This is something we kind of indicated a little bit earlier, but we really wanted to talk about how the technology can play a role in providing a better work environment. The first thing that we do is we really talk about a concept about intelligent workspaces, things that help the worker be more effective, but it also helps the environment and the company and the space adapt to that worker in a very positive way. And so when we look at this, we see some of the items that the participants shared that would really help them adapt a little bit better and use this technology to fight off some of those frustrations that we see. And some of them are pretty innovative ideas of, I want a device that automatically pairs with other devices. If you think about being in the office and walking into a meeting room, and instead of having to find the remote and log in and do all these things, you've set a meeting, the system knows that you have a meeting coming, and it sees that you've entered the room. And so it automatically brings it up. It brings up the presentation is ready to go. And we see a lot of things like wireless screen sharing. We talked about the digital signage before, office navigation, all of these types of things, including voice control, that not only create productivity and simplicity, but it also provides an opportunity to be safer from, passing contagions around. So there's definitely this concept around an intelligent workspace. And these things work together in kind of 3 areas. One, it creates a less frustrating work environment. Second, it creates more productivity for the workers. They're not fighting with technology, they're just able to use it, and it provides that safer work environment. One of the things that maybe we should jump into and talk a little bit about, Scott, is, what is going to be happening. And I think that this particular chart represents what people really need to think about. We talked about people working from home. We talked about people coming back to the office. But what people really need to sink in their heads is the way that work is going to be done and how that's going to kind of change forever. It's a bit of a new era, if you will, the pun. And 98% of all the meetings going forward is going to have somebody joining from home. And this creates an opportunity, but also a challenge. It means that every meeting that you're going to be in, you may be in the room, in the office with other participants, but you also may be the participant at home. And we're going to need technology that's going to enable that to be quick and seamless so that we get productivity. If you think about the amount of frustrations that we've heard and we've seen in the research, and even things we didn't get to cover, like audio and video problems, that when you're wasting time and you've got 8 people that you're trying to connect on a meeting and people can't show up or can't share, this ends up being not only a frustration for the employee, it's a direct loss for the company.
And I think this is a huge finding right here, and something that will dramatically change office spaces going forward. Is it's not just a space or four walls that help us quickly collaborate of the people physically there. Almost every single space or brainstorming session most likely will include someone who's working from home, and those remote home workers can't feel like a third party participant in any way, shape, or form. The collaboration needs to be a pretty seamless experience and where we go throughout the office to engage with people who aren't in those four walls.
Absolutely. And I think if we kind of get to the last findings that we're going to have time to cover today, I think we want to kind of end on these types of information as we think about for the employees and for the companies, what do we need to do to be effective in this new era? One is the employees are asking for better equipment. I need better equipment to be more productive at home, to make it easy to share, to make myself join in those collaboration or meetings and not be fighting audio problems or video problems or connectivity problems, those types of things. We also know that employees want a better in-office experience. So this gets back to that opportunity. For those that are coming, we're changing the environment, we're downsizing. There's an opportunity to make the workspace smart, work for the employees, and provide better productivity for the company. This can be a win-win. And the last is that it really gets into this concept of intelligent workspace to improve the work environment. This is what 96% of the companies have admitted that they're going to be doing. This isn't a pie in the sky. This isn't the research of what do you think you might want to do. This is what those leaders in the companies are committing to. And they shared with us in the research that they are making changes to make this happen. And so the COVID has provided a big step change for the world. And it's an opportunity. And those companies that take advantage of this opportunity and don't just look at all the negatives, but see it as an opportunity to optimize and reset, are going to end up with a workforce that is more flexible, that is more productive, and costs less than it did before. And that's a huge opportunity. But they've really got to adopt and implement the right technology that's going to make them feel comfortable, both for the employee and for the company that's going to implement and maintain that technology.
David, this has been fascinating to talk with you and to learn about some of the findings from this research study. This is now available on the Cisco collaboration channels, on the Webex channels. I encourage everyone to go take a look at it. But as we see, right, going forward, removing those friction points, having collaboration-specific devices to help make it a seamless experience, and the use of AI and sensors and that intelligence in the various workplaces you might be are all going to be critical, as you mentioned, for every company, every industry going forward. Really appreciate you spending some time with us, David. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Scott. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second session of this Future of Work series on the intelligent workspaces. I'm really excited about this next session because we're going to be holding a panel discussion to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing as it relates to the workplace and how do we use data to identify how we can optimize that workspace. So with me and joining me today as part of this panelist discussion as we talk about intelligent workspace, first we have Richard Bays, who's the product manager of Webex Rooms at Cisco. Richard, we are glad you're with us. We also have James McHale, who's the managing director of memory research. James, thank you. And we also have Sal Rosado, who is the global real estate and cognitive and digital transformation lead at IBM. Sal, thank you for being with us today. And Sal, I want to address the first question to you, right? So we hear a lot about what's going on, right? We know that there's been a huge shift and a change from the pre-COVID workplace that we all used to know and hopefully love. And there's a change, and there's been a huge change as we look at what's happening in the acceleration of collaboration and what's driving a change in the workplace. And so I want to ask you, What have you seen that has changed from before the pandemic to after the pandemic, and maybe what this new normal might look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, Scott. I'm glad to be here to talk about this topic. So, to your question, when I think about the pre-pandemic workplace at IBM, I think back maybe a half a dozen years, and we were going through an agile transformation in our workforce. We were changing the way we did business, and our physical space was changing to represent that. So there was a great emphasis put on collaboration, kind of the magic of co-location and being together. And you saw that in our physical space. The walls of the historic office came down, the cubicle walls came down. And our new agile workplace was open work desks where we all sit together and can easily talk to each other. Lots of wonderful cafe spaces and areas that gave us choice. Outside awareness, light, glass penetrated the office place. And what I noticed about that new workplace was it required a technology overlay to find efficiency. And what I mean by that is there were these task-based locations within the workspace. So you needed to take a phone call, you needed some private time, you had to go find a room. And so you used to maybe shut your door, you were in your cubicle, you took your call. Now, when you move from collaboration mode maybe to phone call mode, you had to find a space to do that. And so it drove the need for technology overlay for that built environment in order to have efficiency. And now what I see is, we've all been forced to work from home for some time period. We've used and embraced the collaboration tools that we have. And moving forward, I see that we're going to continue to work from home in a way that we haven't in the past. In fact, IBM was pushing all co-located workers, everyone's together, really capitalize on the magic of being together. Well, in that time period, the technology of collaboration has advanced. And this forced experiment has proven that we can we can collaborate effectively using technology. And so the workplace of the future, the post-COVID workplace, is going to have to be able to pull in the remote collaborators in a more meaningful way. The engagement we have to kind of glean some of the magic of being co-located, being together, and instill that, infuse it into the technology. Find those bits of wonder that we have in working together, being side by side, and looking for ways to replicate that. And I see it coming, and it is happening, and it is embedded. And then also post-COVID workplace, using the data. So I talked about the technology overlay. Well, the data has new meaning. So if we have occupancy of workplaces, let's say pre-COVID, post-COVID, that same data could be used to drive cleaning and is used to drive deep cleaning of spaces. General building occupancy is used for social distancing. Make sure we don't overpopulate our spaces. So that's the kind of shift that I've been seeing.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And I think it's interesting, like, as you kind of mentioned, the office was a place that was designed all around. We went to the office to collaborate. And now we've seen that doesn't have to necessarily be the case anymore. In fact, we can do it pretty effectively wherever we might be. And so, Richard, I want to bring you into this conversation now and kind of get your thought on this, as well as what we might see post-pandemic of what this office space might look like from a collaboration perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Definitely. I think, post-COVID and the return to work is definitely going to be a different environment than we were before. I think there was already an acceleration towards a workspace transformation, and potentially, this situation we're in now has accelerated that even faster. As we've seen from the recent survey results we just mentioned earlier, like 98% of people expect a meeting to have a remote user in that. That's huge. That's, you need every single space in the environment needs to be equipped with collaboration equipment to be able to not just host that person or have that person in the meeting, but to be able to actually collaborate in that meeting. Because it's not just about attending, being on a phone call, but it's being able to interact and actually, drive outcomes in the business. So I think that's going to be really interesting, but also the floor plan is going to change. I think, Sal, you mentioned around the shift you guys made already pre, where we are today in terms of the workspace. But I think even now there's going to be a different view, a different change. There still will be need for the large rooms, the 12, the 15, the 18 seaters. We will definitely get back to that. But there might be a more drive for more focused rooms, or what we call like silent rooms, where it's just one person can collaborate with many people remotely, or more huddle spaces. Maybe your 6-person rooms now become 3-person rooms. There will be definitely a massive change, I think, in that environment. But also the other change I've seen here is around the assistant, and whether it be touchless environments, like be able to go in and have a touchless experience, but even from in the work flow, how do I accelerate collaboration with the assistant? So not just about connecting, but also during the meeting. How can that assistant help me, get me to my next meeting, or vice versa in that sense from taking notes? So massive change, I think, is happening. And this, when we go back to work and return to work throughout the world, I think we'll see, all companies take a look at their environment and how they can adapt to, what people need to use going forward.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about kind of the adapting and some of the data as you both mentioned. But as part of this question, James, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because as we talked before, you talked about, yes, Office is great for collaboration. We can see now we can collaborate anywhere, but there's maybe some more elements, like social elements, to that Office as well. I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, James.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate being included in the conversation today. I think it's super interesting. We're going through some massive changes at the moment. Yeah, I mean, and echoing what Sal said, what Richard said, I think we are obviously going to move to a more hybrid kind of way of working, right? That seems fairly clear. But it may not work for everybody in every situation. I think actually, some people do have challenges with working from home. It's not always home. It's just not always a conducive environment for work. So we have to, offer alternatives, and that's, I think, what as well was flexibility, right? Being able to offer different types of spaces for when appropriate. So, remote working, it definitely works very well for tech companies, medium size, let's say groups of 20, 30 people. But, beyond that, I think we need more. And one of the big aspects is, around culture. Like, I think we can't overlook how important culture is within organizations. Even just down to the collective language that people use, the bonds that they create, not just work, but outside of work as well. Like, these are important. If an organization, wants people to move in the same direction and have the same goals, then, we really need to create those bonds. We are, of course, so at the end of the day. Yeah, so I think we're looking at something flexible.
Yeah, and speaking of, because it's flexible, and James, I want to go back to you on this. We talk about the flexibility of the office space, and the pandemic has accelerated this transformation of the office space. So, what other trends are you specifically seeing that really is moving a transformation of the office space and accelerating that from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot happening even before COVID. I actually sort of make 3 observations here about what I'd call, more macro trends. So number one, of course, IoT, right? It's pervasive. It's having an impact on buildings. And why is that? Well, it's essentially we have more sensing capability now, which means we can measure more things. And by measuring, of course, we can manage more effectively. So I think there's some massive potential there to optimize our buildings. Number two, I would say absolutely wellness. It's something I've seen organizations and building owners pay a lot more attention to. They really are, interested in providing excellent environments for their employees. Why is that? I think because they really understand that it gives them a competitive advantage, right? We're living in a knowledge-based economy. To be the most efficient, productive, and best organization we can be, we need to employ the best people, and we need to give them the environment to work in. Third and final one, I'd call it prop tech. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but essentially what we're seeing is a lot of startup companies coming through now, getting funding, and they've created quite an interesting little ecosystem around that. And yeah, they've been getting some decent funding in, and are actually trying to disrupt and innovate the space. And I think they're going to be successful in doing that.
I think that's interesting, and I think as part of that, right, all these prop tech industries popping up, and they bring in these variety of different ways to measure, and these sensors that are in the office space in order to help understand maybe optimize that. And so this really kind of gets us into this idea, the concept of these intelligent experiences in a hybrid workplace, these intelligent workspaces. So Sally, I'm curious to get your perspective on that. As organizations start moving to hopefully adopting intelligent workspaces, what is going to define success? How do we measure it? How do we optimize it? What's going to be important for people to understand as they look at optimizing the office space?
Yeah, so great question. And I think success depends upon each individual's business definition of success. So the way we look at it is you have to define your use cases. You have to start with your use cases. And for us, it's around occupant experience, kind of tying back to what James said about attracting and retaining talent. That's part of it. Also about the culture of the space. We want that technology to be part of the representation of IBM's culture in our physical space. So though we have use cases around occupant experience. I talked earlier about the need to find work spaces, and you talked about the way spaces will be used in the future, that we'll have breakout spaces. Richard talked about individual rooms for conferences with your coworkers that aren't there. So success for us in occupant experience is making sure that the people in our space feel the culture through the technology, that they're efficient in their space, and that the space works for them. Instead of them having to figure out how to make the space work, the space helps them in their daily lives. And it's that technology overlay. So occupant experience and delivering on use cases there. We also have use cases from a business perspective around space utilization. Do we have too much space? Of course, called into question for every company right now. What does tomorrow look like? We've been talking about remote work. Do I have the information to know if my portfolio is right-sized? So delivering on that use case. Do I know that I have the right types of space? So the utilization of my individual rooms. Do I have enough of those small breakout conference rooms? Do I have too many large rooms? So getting that feedback. For us, facilities management, obviously that's a big part of the experience of our people. Is the space clean? Super important right now, and making sure that we can deliver on those use cases and use technology to ensure used rooms get deep cleaned, but also generally, is the space comfortable? is the mechanical system working effectively? Outside air, CO2 levels are in check, things like that. Am I delivering on those use cases? And then energy conservation in the environment. We have a long history of energy-focused programs, environmental-focused programs, and we use all of this sensor technology, the same sensor technology that we're deploying for wellness, also to make sure that we're not over-consuming energy and that our spaces are good stewards of the environment as well. So for us, those are our use cases, and we have to make sure that we're delivering on those use cases. And I think other businesses have their own, many similar as we see out there in the marketplace. But then it's tying back results to each of your individual use cases.
And it's amazing, I would say, how much information and data can then be captured because of all these different sensors. You mentioned a whole bunch of different use cases, exactly, and to help people feel more comfortable and make that office more intent-based on the collaboration they're going to be doing. And Richard, I'm interested to get your perspective. There is a lot of information and data that can be collected, a lot of different sensors from different organizations. How do people deal with that?
Yes, Scott, it's really interesting area. Definitely when it comes to data standards and looking at how we transport IoT data around. I think that there definitely are standards when it comes to the sensor to the system, whether we're within like one vendor. We have like MQTT on a technical standpoint, but when we start like correlating data between different systems, and I think a lot of organizations, they don't want to rely just on one sensor. They want to rely, you want to correlate data through multiple sensors to get you the right insight. So I think that's where we definitely do a bit of work to happen in the industry to really standardize around that. And obviously, having open platforms that, you can share that data around to correlate it into your own environment. I think Sal mentioned it earlier on about, every organization has their own use case and their own needs. So it's very hard to build a system that kind of works for everyone. So you need to have a very open system that lets you bring data in and out very easily. So I think that's really important. And as we go down there, I think I've seen some organizations, with intelligent workplaces, they definitely are going towards that direction. I think everyone's, understands the need to have data in the office and to have the sensor data available for multiple different personas, whether it be facilities, HR, or even IT. But I think everyone's at a different level right now. Just like when you're on the cloud strategy, everyone's at a different path towards cloud migration. I think everyone's at a different path when it comes to intelligent workplace migration. And again, I think this is going to accelerate that in terms of, we have this like pause where no one's kind of in the office in some areas. So now it's going to accelerate, that change to say, okay, how do we use the data correctly? And is the perfect time as well to be set up, ready to go, because now you can get your environment ready for the return to work. And you can then start getting that data straight away and optimizing and baselining from there. So I think, an example of that, would be around, I think Sal mentioned the booked rooms and not being utilized. Sensors can help you actually work out, if the room is utilized or not. Where today, a lot of companies are using booking systems to look at the intent of usage. And when you're trying to plan your footprint, the intent is a great indication, but maybe not something you want to rely on when making sweeping changes, because then you don't want to disrupt your workforce by making changes all the time. You want to definitely be more agile and not try and adapt as we go along.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting. We've talked about how we've moved to a remote culture. We're starting to see in some places people coming back to work, and it's important to talk about how we get people back. I shouldn't say back to work, back to the office, right? We've been working all along, but as we talked about, as remote work is never going to go away now, there has to be some kind of a seamless bridge, a seamless experience between working wherever you may be working outside of the office and then going into the office. That experience should be the same. So Richard, talk a little bit about that and how important do you see that experience with some of the companies that you're speaking with?
Yeah, Scott, I think it's going to be really interesting. I kind of see like the office of the future with remote work and home usage as like a hub and spoke network. So like, the home being the spoke and the hub being the office. And, so you definitely are, it's going to be critical to make sure we go back to the office in some capacity and to do certain functions. But at the same time, you want to have a connection to the office. So I think it's really important for organizations to offer services that allows the employee at home to have a status of the building before they leave their driveway. Because why would you want to travel 20, 30 minutes to the office if what you require is not available or is currently booked or busy? So I think having that real-time data available at home through business systems, through applications, is going to be very critical in this new multiple workplace hub and spoke design.
And Sal, I'm curious to get your perspective on this from an IBM perspective. How important is it that seamless experience be there?
Yeah, Scott, I totally agree with Richard. It needs to be a seamless experience across your home and your work. And I love that hub and spoke analogy because, in the past, we looked at the workspace as a catalyst for collaboration, but in the future, it'll be used for intentional collaboration. So I may not go to the workplace every day. Well, yesterday, I was going to the workplace every single day. And tomorrow, today I'm not nearly at all. Tomorrow, I'll be going a couple of times a week. And so I need to still be engaged with my coworkers. It's incredibly important that the collaboration tools allow me to do that. And to Richard's point, the workplace informs me. So if I need a work point, a desk, let's say, I can book a desk using my technology, my workplace technology, that technology overlay that I spoke of earlier. If I need an impromptu workplace, sensor data lets me know where that impromptu workplace is. So anything that I need, whether I'm at home and want to go to work, maybe it's parking. Do I need parking when I get to work? Is parking available? Do I take mass transit? So I can make those decisions ahead of time. It really reduces the friction of going to the workplace, taking the worst, the unknowns, those things that I didn't know there was a traffic jam, I didn't know there were no desks available, or things like that, especially in light of our need to reimagine the workplace and probably redefine the size of the workplace moving forward, because let's face it, COVID is changing the way we look at the workplace, and remote work will change the size of our workplace moving forward, most likely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's I think an important insight. Kind of the intent-based collaboration as we go into the office, but just the different reasons we might be going into the office and how we look at that space. So as we continue this discussion around intelligent workspaces and what we see in the workplace, James, I want to get your perspective, because we've talked a lot about the different data that these sensors and different devices can collect, but what are some other use cases as well? Sal mentioned some different use cases. What are some other use cases you're seeing where this data can be of value and of use?
It's really interesting. I think a lot of organizations are trying out new stuff, collecting data, and then, putting together interesting use cases. I mean, for example, sort of a lesser known thing I saw the other day, which I thought was super interesting, was where they're, counting people in. I can't remember, I think maybe through the access control system, or indeed you could with some kind of other occupancy sensing, working out how many people there are in the office that day, then sending that information to the canteen. So at lunch, they have a rough idea of how many people are in the building, and therefore how many lunches that they should be preparing. And I think even like the chef got a text message, sometime during the morning to give him that information. And that's, I think really interesting use of that information. And then, of course, it really saves on food waste as well. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Richard, I'm curious from your perspective, use cases you've seen some of this data being collected.
Yeah, Scott, I think, we've seen ourselves, like, for example, cleaning. That's been a really big one. So we released a macro to help people work out how long a room is being utilized for. And we've seen organizations use this macro to inform cleaning services. So, for example, when the room is being used for over 2 hours, they would send a message to the cleaning service to go and perform cleaning in that space. Also, I've seen some people, they actually block the room out. So they will say, okay, once the room has been utilized for a set amount of time, they like bucket a time slot saying 2 hours maximum usage. Then they block it off from being used until it's cleaned. And then the cleaner has to check a box on the touch panel saying this room has now been cleaned. It can be reused again. So I think it's going to be really interesting around, I think, sensors with cleaning as a service, so to speak. And that's going to obviously help, definitely organizations when they look at cost. With all the additional services that they offer, to be able to optimize that using the sensor technology is going to have an overall return on investment more than just what is the intentional use case of the first use case of the sensor. It could have additional benefits on top of that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There are so many use cases. I think that there are things we haven't even thought of yet of where these sensors can be applied. But in particular, right? Making sure, we talked to David Geringer just before this, right? And he talked about making sure that employees feel safe coming back into the office. And in a time where they want to make sure everything's been cleaned, this will help them and the employer being able to ensure that is the case. So interesting feedback. So we've talked a lot about these intelligent work spaces. And again, how the office is going to be looked at and measured going forward. So we probably have time for one more question, and really want to get your thoughts on this, because I think we're just at the beginning of where this is going. But where do people start? There's a lot of complexity in this, right? They can cover a whole slew of different use cases. But just give us a 2 or 3 things of where people can start, whether that's from the IT perspective or the facilities, HR. Richard, maybe we'll start with you.
When it comes to this, I think IT, facilities, and HR talking together. So in different organizations, we've seen, certain organizations have these what we call like workspace units that do look after meeting rooms or look after whether it comes to video conferencing or even laptops and other aspects. I think having IT, facilities, and HR come together at a round table and have a discussion about what use cases they're trying to solve. Because I think there might be technology in all the different units that can be helped solve those use cases. So that's what I would say is like definitely talk to your other functions in your business.
That's a great point. James, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Really interesting. I would say a couple of things. I would say, first of all, don't be led specifically by the technology. I would first of all think about what your outcome needs to be. What do you want to achieve, right? If you can get that and understand what that is, then you can start looking at what technology is going to help solve that problem or get you to that point. And then I think also you should be out there looking in the ecosystem. That doesn't necessarily mean talking to vendors, but I think that's useful. They can help you, point you in the right direction. But also as well, maybe reach out to someone in your peer group who've perhaps tested some things, and they might be willing to share with you some information about what's worked and what doesn't work. And also, don't think that these things have to start huge, right? You can, let's take, for example, occupancy sensing. You can start with a smaller installation, maybe one floor, maybe a small part of a floor, test that, see how it works, and then basically iterate. If you find that it works, then you can scale up from there. That's what I suggest.
Yeah. So eat the elephant one bite at a time. I think that makes a lot of sense. Sal, I want to get your closing thoughts on this perspective and advice you'd give as well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I really have to echo what both James and Richard said, because when I think about our journey, it was exactly what James talked about. It was find the use cases. Where where can we deliver value with technology? It wasn't implementing technology for technology's sake, because there are a lot of interesting, shiny objects out there that you want to try. But it was, let's look at our business. Where does it make sense? And that's where we glean those focus areas, occupant experience. And when you think about the salaries of the people in the space, it's an order of magnitude more than the space it costs. But when we looked at where our spend is, it was for space in real estate, FM services, and energy, and of course the commitment to the environment made those our focus items. And under occupant experience, it's health and safety and wellness. So define that set of use cases. What are you focusing on? Then determine the business value. It's got a return. You have to find a return in it. And then bridging that to Richard's thought around making sure that you bring in your other groups, hugely important for us. We worked with the Chief Information Security Office and the Chief Information Office to find secure ways to connect these products together. Again, tying back to one of Richard's other thoughts, we didn't want to deploy 5 occupancy sensors because we had 5 use cases that used occupancy, but rather bridge the data together and share that data across applications. And for that, we worked with the CIO, CISO for that secure networking capability, and ultimately led to our ability to deliver on use cases with their technology, using Wi-Fi to count people, comparing it to our badge data. So again, in summary, what are your use cases? What value can you find? And then what's the path of least resistance? Are there ways that you can do it with the technology you have? And also select the technology that fits your use cases. And it's a journey.
I think that's the case. That's the thing. It's a journey, and obviously this is accelerated. We're looking at the office as a new beast, and how do we get the best utilization out of that? How do we optimize it in this new world of a hybrid workplace that we're in? James, Richard, Sal, I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with us today to talk about the future of work and in these intelligent workspaces and what this might look like, and some best practice ideas and where to start. So thank you everyone for joining us, and Sal, James, and Richard, thank you for being a part of it today.
Greetings and welcome to this session on the blueprint for the hybrid workplace. It's clear the hybrid workplace has arrived. For those beginning to return to the office, we're experiencing it firsthand. I'm based out of Oslo, Norway, where we've taken a phased approach of having our teams back in the office. I'm sure many of you are having to go through a similar planning process. I will say that as quickly as organizations have adapted to home offices, they're now faced with building a long-term strategy in a world where we've seen decades of innovation going through dramatic change in the last 6 months. Most people want flexibility, allowing them to work from home when wanted, or work from office when needed as a destination for collaboration. As someone who's lived this journey, I couldn't agree more. However, in order to return to the office, we must consider our needs and our well-being in this new reality. In a survey commissioned by Cisco, we found that 97% of employees said that they want changes at the workplace to feel safer. We also found that 94% of companies believe that technology would benefit them by providing a safer work environment. This new blueprint requires cultural change, strategic planning, and better tools. I believe that an intelligent workplace is where this begins. And it's just not my opinion. 96% of companies we surveyed said the same thing, truly in order to improve work environments. This is a new way of driving experience for many. And as I've met with CIOs across different organizations, they share their top needs with me. The first and foremost being how to have a very strong, consistent work from home and a safe return to office program. The second one, they're all thinking about real estate, optimizing that, and really also thinking about operational efficiency. A critical piece to all of this is about how do we continue driving engagement in the workplace, and critically also about talent retention. And lastly, as we make a big transformation to this new reality, we know that every conversation is now on voice. Video is the new voice. And what does that mean in terms of having a consistent video strategy, which is allowing for tremendous scale within the organization? So these concerns underlying the need to fill a void. Over several years, successful organizations made huge strides in fostering culture at the office, investing in capabilities such as gourmet chefs, exercise rooms, or like in my office, a day what we call as playtime. However, there is a shift in how we see the new workplace, one that is flexible, one where going to an office means collaborating. Beyond just connecting people, technology must truly help bonds to be created between people, foster culture, and truly humanize that experience. So how do we address that? First, we need to organize and recognize obstacles that may prevent it. As we are immersed in remote work, many of us are finding challenges with this new dynamics of working from home. Being distracted, feeling isolated, trying to balance your home life as well as work. We know we have many of our colleagues who have kids at home. How does that sort of come together? And also, many of us are also the first-time users of this technology and might have our own challenges. So, it is more important than ever to experience natural and authentic interactions as though we are truly face-to-face. And why do I say this? Well, in the past, it was okay to have a short 45 minutes on your laptop. But as we think about the new reality, and as we're doing virtual meetings for hours at home, we truly need fatigue-free, lifelike, high-fidelity experiences. Our focus at Webex Rooms has been about building devices truly for any space, including your personal office. Webex Rooms and Webex Platform have you covered with purpose-built hardware and software experiences that is designed to meet face-to-face with a consistent experience across all devices and help you with your challenges of working from home. When we say this is 10x better than being there, we're promoting a world where it doesn't matter whether you're in person or remote. Take the Webex Desk Pro, for example. With a 27-inch 4K display and a USB cable that provides laptop charging, touch redirect, this beauty can actually become your PC in your everyday unit. And when you're in virtual meetings all day, nothing beats truly its video and its audio. Even the highest performing PC can't compete because this truly was designed to meet face-to-face and with written intelligence built everywhere. As the hybrid approach begins to take place, it's important that you have consistent experiences across the board, whether you're at home or in the office. The Desk Pro is part of our scalable solutions for all spaces that accommodate personal needs. I'm excited for you to hear about some of the major announcements we're making today and the innovation we continue to do for all desks and small spaces. The reason consistent experience is critical is because how we work at office is changing as well. We must reimagine our workspaces and reevaluate our real estate footprint. Coming to the office is no longer about individual work, but a destination for collaboration. It now becomes a collaboration hub. And in order to do that effectively, we need to first consider what is top of mind for people when returning to the workplace. At Cisco and in my office in Oslo, Norway, we became customer zero as one of the first to return to the office. And like many of the concerns that I spoke about earlier, we had the same thoughts of our journey back. Ultimately, to provide these, we understood that our spaces had to be redesigned. And let me share you what I mean, because in the past, we used to gather many times, all of us coming together in one room, and we probably had a few remote attendees who we supported. We're now changing that, and we're focusing on small cohorts and virtual meetings, even if it is in a conference room right next door. So let me give you a visual on how that looks like in an intelligent workplace.
This is Kate, and today Kate is leaving her home office and working from the office. Things have changed a bit since she was last there, but change isn't exactly Kate's thing. She actually never changes anything. Same parking spot, same lunch, same coffee cup. If anyone was going to have a hard time with all these changes, it was going to be Kate.
Okay, Webex. Ask Wayfinding to find me a space to work.
With Webex, you can see what meeting rooms might be available, automatically book one, and find your way to your room if you happen to be using a new one for the first time ever. And now with Room Navigator, she can even access room controls and start her meeting like never before, because every space has a Webex assistant.
Hey, Webex, start my meeting.
Hey, how's the office? I hear a lot has changed.
It has. It's pretty good, actually. I'm actually meaning to show you that.
Two-way whiteboarding makes co-creating possible from everywhere. And when it's time to get back on the move, it's easy to transfer your meeting and keep working.
So as I was saying.
Times have changed, but some of the changes are for the better. Just ask Kate.
Having an intelligent workplace has definitely helped my office and personally myself begin a safe journey back like the video shows. And I'm thrilled we're able to show you some of the details today. Here are some of the things that you'll get to hear about. The first one is real-time alerts. So let's think about a scenario. In the past, you had spaces which allowed a whole group of people to be part of that. Now with distancing norms, those norms actually are dictating how many participants could be in that space. So you can actually set now limits for each of those spaces with the number of maximum participants. And what happens when you exceed that capacity? Well, within that particular meeting, within those devices, you get a visual alert to see the fact that, and alerts giving you information that you've exceeded capacity. And this information then is seamlessly fed into other systems, whether it's for IT or others who are looking at this information and making decisions. It's providing them all of this goodness into even their own workflow, whether it's a Teams group, which has all the participants and who can then drive decisions. So back to that scenario, let's say the person who exceeded capacity wanted to join the meeting. Well, all he needs to do now is just look at his Teams app, because on the fly, you're able to get directed to a new space with all the capabilities allowing you to have a very successful meeting. And this is some of the innovations that we're really bringing to you. Here's another innovation that is something that we're really seeing having a profound impact. So as you enter into the building itself, how can you have real-time information on occupancy within the building itself? And as you see from the slide, we're able to, on a real-time basis, get very visual information, which is displayed on all the signage screens across your entire campus. And that is a key element of how you actually drive some of these success moments too, which is getting very rich digital signage capabilities, providing guidelines, safety standards, or any sorts of information richly across your entire hybrid workplace. So that was about the user, but all of this goodness is delivered and managed through a single pane of glass for IT. Control Hub is now that rich single pane that is able to give you usage data, analytics, engagement, as well as adoption information. Is a space being used and utilized to its fullest capacity? Do you need to rethink about utilization? Or for that matter, even look at how you optimize some of these spaces. So now, not only do you get optimization data, but you also get very detailed security and compliance guidelines so that you can comply with all of those. And all of these capabilities are giving you truly all the capabilities to have management across the organization get insight in terms of other decisions, whether it's key stakeholders from real estate, from workplace, or for that matter, core IT. A critical piece of all of this is also being able to troubleshoot from this single pane of glass and be able to understand and make those incredible changes. Hopefully that gave you a very strong sense of all those capabilities that we're bringing as part of the intelligent workplace. But what does that intelligent workplace now look like? It will vary based on needs of your employees and your enterprise, but it's always seamless and eliminates points of friction. So you and your team feel safe. It builds and enables productivity, builds trust, and creates bond. Here's an example of what could be that experience. A remote employee is visiting a new building for the first time. When she enters the building, her mobile client welcomes her to the building and offers to find a space for her next meeting. It suggests available rooms. She reserves one that is right size with the right technology with just a click of a button, and she's seamlessly directed on her mobile device. Along the way, it highlights key capabilities and amenities of the building, like the cafe, or for that matter, other sorts of capabilities that might be there, including the coffee machines. As she enters into the space, with a simple voice command, the meeting starts. And the digital assistant, which is included with all of these incredible devices, transcribes the meeting, transcribes the discussion, and captures action items, all while the team collaborates on a digital whiteboard. After the meeting, all the notes, action items, whiteboards, files are saved in a single team space where everybody is together. And as she and the team leave the space, they're given a quick survey about their experience, and she's provided directions to the next meeting. So that is potentially how we're really bringing all of these experiences to you to help drive that digital experience. As I close out, I want to thank you for joining me in this session, because what you saw was we have the richest portfolio for helping you work from office, a consistent set of experiences so that you can have amazing experiences while you're working from home. And then as you start thinking about that journey to the office, helping you rethink all those paradigms about space, utilization, and how you can drive fantastic magical moments in the workplace, all with an underlying theme of providing safe and secure return back into the office. A critical part to all of this is also providing a very strong capabilities in terms of insight, analytics, and a platform which allows for this fluid collaboration. So when implemented at scale for your employees, what you're then enabling is your employees' well-being in mind, technology that could really help strengthen culture, which in turn will drive innovation and adoption to meet the new market conditions. I'm extremely proud of Cisco's contributions to this new normal and cannot wait for you to hear about how we're really helping you deliver on the hybrid workplace.
Hi everyone, my name is Arnaud Kenny and I'm a product manager for Webex Rooms.
And hi, my name is Richard Bays. I'm a product manager for Webex Rooms.
Welcome to the last part of this webinar, and today we're going to introduce you to solutions that we are bringing to make this an intelligent workplace.
Yep.
But before we start, things have changed quite dramatically, Rich, over the last years, right? So we observed quite a few changes in the workplace. Companies have been transforming their workspace in a way that they now have more open spaces, which created a need for more small huddle spaces. At the same time, we see a new generation of workers, the Gen Y and Z, who also come with their own requirements, wanting to work basically from more or less anywhere. And last, the COVID has also changed our habits. And that's also driven quite some new requirements. But I think we can say overall that all these changes are creating a demand for a workplace that's much more flexible and agile.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think the workplace has got more intelligent. It hasn't changed yet. So, what are we going to be able to do in that space?
Yeah, you're right. I don't think the workplace has become more intelligent. I think we can observe that we still pretty much have the same problems. We are not helping for these changes. So let's list some of those problems that we met.
I think finding rooms is very hard. Like, not knowing, the name of each room in your building. You could have, 20, 30, 50 rooms. Like, knowing where to go is quite hard. So finding a room and also an available room is almost impossible sometimes.
I always get people asking me in the corridor, where is such or such room? And it's not a very large building, but people forget easily what rooms are named, like, yep. and where they are. Another thing also is this bad habit of booking rooms and not using them. So that's really bad, because when you book a room and you don't attend, the room is still booked in the calendar. So basically no one else can use it. And you end up having these empty spaces.
How many times I go in the hallway and just see rooms that are like empty, but you're like, you go into the scheduling system and they're not available. So it's a waste of space.
It's a bad habit. We also have inadequate rooms. So rooms are like you see people in the room, but the size is wrong. Like, for example, we have this case very often. There's been reported that people squat large meeting rooms at Cisco because they want to have access to video systems that are not in all rooms just yet, unfortunately.
Well, the other issue you have, right, is like people will, not book a room. They'll sleep it free. They'll jump in, they'll use it, and you get like stare down. And I may have put my hand up. I may have been involved in some of those stare downs before, and it creates tension in the environment, which no one wants.
Right. Conflicting rooms is also an interesting one, where when you book a room and you have these traditional room booking solutions with a check-in button. So you go there and you have to press this check-in button, and if you don't, the room gets automatically released. You are inside the room, and actually, if you forgot to press that button, you just don't know what happens, and the room gets released. What happens at the same time is another team can book this room while you are still inside, and they go there, and there's a conflict, right? That's a problem.
Or meetings start late is another issue as well, right? We see, for example, you have these introduction periods where everyone has a round table saying who they are or their title. Webex is doing a lot in that space at the moment when it comes to face recognition and name labels, and also adding titles to really, help you get more into the meat of the conversation. So you can, get rid of some of this wasted time of instructions.
Yeah, that's an eternal problem. Meetings over time, so you get to the end of your meeting, but you're not quite done yet. But unfortunately, there's someone else who's booked the room after you. So you need to find another space, or you just have to interrupt this, and it's quite frustrating.
Well, you see those eyes, right? They look over the thing they're saying, "Are you done yet? Are you done yet?" Yeah. So it's a big issue, and you don't want to have to do another meeting to have a decision for the meeting you just booked. That's just wasting everyone's time. So having the ability to actually know how long you have left is important.
It is important. And last, social distancing. So now we have to have the density has to come down, and that actually creates even more problems, like exacerbating all the problems we have above.
Yeah.
Now the question is, with all these problems in mind, what happens for employees and users, right, of those meeting rooms? What they see of a building is what you have here in our picture, is a building that's mostly occupied and only a few rooms are available. And that picture is probably a little bit too idealistic, because the reality is that those available rooms are scattered around the building, and you have to scout the entire building in order to find them, which you don't do because you don't have time for doing that. So eventually it gives you the perception that the building is fully occupied. But that's not the reality. So if I go back to this picture here, how is this space really occupied? Well, we've been looking at this in depth. That's coming from actually data we collected from the Cisco organization. And what we found that is that you see in the light blue there, that's the rooms that are actually used well and at their full potential, like with full occupation. That's real usage of meeting rooms. The one in yellow, that's people who book rooms that are just too large. Like you're 2 people in a 10 people meeting room, that's a lot of wastage. So that's what is represented in this yellow color. And the bigger one, the dark blue, is those room booking no-shows that we've just been talking about, right? So that's people booking rooms and not attending.
So the way I look at it here, we have like maybe 20-ish% is optimized utilization. So there's room for opportunity here to optimize it even further.
There's a lot of space that can be regained, and that's really good for your facilities organization. They would be very happy to free that space, as well as for users, because then it's going to be much more easy to find a space.
But if we talk about the biggest problem here, which is overscheduling and no-shows, is this, maybe due to the culture we have at the moment? And if we look at, the fact that we're in this, I would say, scheduled culture where people book meetings, recurring monthly in advance. I've even heard quarterly, and people booking rooms quarterly in advance is crazy. So obviously we need to look at how can we move into like a more ad hoc booking solution, because then you take rooms when you need them. And I think that will help us, some way fix some of these misutilization.
Absolutely. We have to move from this scheduled way of booking rooms into this more ad hoc kind of room. So bringing the consumption of the meeting space closer to the time of need.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the only thing. So that's about finding rooms and booking rooms. That's before the meeting, but during the meeting as well. So what you also want to do is optimize the room occupation. So let's take some examples for explaining that. Imagine this 10 people meeting room here, and the blue line is how it is occupied. So typically a 10 people meeting room is designed for meetings that have 10 people, but that doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, this room doesn't have 10 people. And if you were looking at the average occupation of this room over time, you would actually find that on average during working hours, it's less than 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this building happens to be this 4 people meeting room, which is occupied during the day, but also some vacant spots here.
Yep.
So imagine that we know about the top room here, the blue line, but we also know about the existence of this other room.
Mm-hmm.
We could start optimizing things if, for example, imagine I want to get rid of those peaks above the dotted line here, and I want to transfer those peak usages to a place that is available.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if I was able to do something like this? Well, you would observe that the 4 people meeting room gets much better utilized. So you have, like in this example, like almost 4 people over the entire day. And the same thing happens for the blue one. But what comes in addition to that is that you can actually free a lot of space if you're able to do something like that.
Now, if I'm a facilities manager, I'm seeing that green line, I'm like, give it to me now. I want this. That is amazing utilization. So, how can we achieve some of this?
I know it sounds like a bit utopian to do something like this, right?
Yes, I would. If you can give me some of this, I would pay for it right now.
You'd pay for that?
Yes.
Okay, let's have a look. Thank you, Rich.
Wow, that was impressive. So a lot of the pain points we saw earlier are being solved there. But like, how do I get this today?
Yeah. Well, you can't really get that today. This is still a pilot, and we're developing that with our partner MazeMap. But stay tuned. Hopefully, you'll be able to install these in your own workplace very soon.
So we saw some things there that we were solving in terms of different aspects that we spoke about earlier. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what we saw there?
Absolutely, yeah. We saw a couple of different of the pain points resolved in this case because you have this ad hoc versus schedule, for example. In the example, that person is coming late to a meeting and the meeting room is already full. So people didn't plan enough for that ahead, right? But that's fine. The place needs to be agile, flexible. So Webex automatically detects that this room is already full. And on the go, can find the closest available room for that person, book that room, and prepare the video system there so that when she gets inside, she has nothing to do, and the system is going to bridge her to the other room that's just nearby. So that's the ad hoc part. The second thing we saw is this flattening the curve that we saw above, right? Which sounded like a bit utopian, but realistically, we can do this. Because in this case, you're actually splitting this group into two rooms inside the same building. So you are actually freeing space.
And we also saw the whole no touch, right? I believe that she was able to go into the room, scan the QR code, and not have to touch anything inside the building and completely get into the meeting and get started. That's pretty impressive.
And that's the magic part of it. We detect there's too many people, we find rooms, we book rooms, and we start meeting and no one has ever pressed a button.
Wow. That's impressive. So a lot of components here to go into that. And when we talk about, like, for example, the real estate has to be involved here quite heavily from a planning standpoint to have a bit of available rooms. Can we elaborate on some of the components we have here?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing you want to plan for is making sure that your physical space is properly dimensioned for the actual needs of your users. So in doing that, you're going to need some tools. We'll get back to that. The second part of that is culture. So it's good to plan and to make sure that you have available space, but you also need to make your users change, and they also need to be confident that there's going to be a room available for them all the time. Right? So these things go together, and the third component is technology. This thing won't happen with technology because I can free space and they can be available spaces in the building if I don't know where they are. It's not going to help me.
So you need every room equipped with technology to be able to enable this experience to the maximum, effect.
Exactly. You need technology in every room.
So if you take a look at some of our technology in that, we can look at, for example, people sensors and the fact that we have our camera technology in our devices. And we've been using that, for the last few years to be able to help crop the camera for video conferencing so we can create the best possible image for the far end. But on top of that, we can also use those sensors to produce value for facilities in the real estate. So we can count the number of faces that are in the room, and we can really, give that live value. So you're no longer having this assumption based on the scheduling system, but you can actually use the live data from the room to understand exactly how many people are using it at any given time. And not just about also, how many people, it's also how long it's being used for. And I think that's, something that is really critical. But should we have a look at this technology in action?
Yeah, let's look at it.
Yeah.
So now Rich and I are in a room equipped with the Webex room series. And you can see what the camera sees. The camera sees two people sitting and represented by those green squares that actually the system recognizing our faces. The one on my face has double square because I'm the active speaker. Now what happens if I turn my back to the camera?
As we can see, our no is still being captured by the system. This is because the system also cares about the body and not just the facial features. And if I put my mask on,
then Rich is still recognized by the camera because of a recent improvement we've made to this algorithm.
So as we saw there, we've now improved our algorithm to be able to detect people regardless of where they look, and also be able to capture them depending on if they're using facial coverings or masks. So, a lot of improvements we've done in this space. But what other sensors do we have, Arnaud, that can also capture?
So we do have another category of sensors, the sound sensors. We have three types here. So we have one sensor that's measuring the overall noise inside a room and reporting that in decibels. We're also capable of separating the ambient noise. So that's the noise that you typically get from the fans, for example. And that gives you some very useful information about how your room is used or if there is disturbance in your area. So in order to understand your building a little bit better. But the third one we have is measuring the acoustics quality of the room. So that rooms don't sound like this one, where all echo have been suppressed. And it would feel very unnatural to have a meeting in this kind of environment.
And you don't want rooms to sound like this, where there's been no echo suppressed. You see these rooms on social media quite a bit with full glass walls. These are not designed for great conferencing experiences.
So you would know if you require sound dampeners like the one behind me, right?
So you're releasing a brand new category of sensors today. Arno, can you give us a bit of insight what they are?
Yes, we are releasing new sensors in your latest generation of devices. We call environment sensors. They are different ones. The first one is air quality. So air quality sensing is about detecting if there are dangerous gases inside the room, and those can be brought by, for example, fresh paint or new furniture. It can also be by the presence of too many people in a room for too long time. So you would see these volatile organic compounds increasing, and that's really valuable information. The second sensor here is light. So we measure the intensity inside rooms or in the office space, and also very useful information. And last but not least, we have also incorporated temperature and humidity inside our devices.
So you're saying I don't need to dress like a Florida in the office anymore?
Please don't do that, Rich. But tell us instead, how can we better leverage this data?
That's a good question. So I think we have Control Hub in a single pane of glass, and we've released real-time data very recently for some of these sensors already. But with these new range of sensors, we're going to enhance that experience with more real-time data and also historical data. So let's take a quick look at a demo.
Let's have a look.
Workspace's real-time metrics for utilization and environmental sensors have been enhanced. We've added additional insights for the new temperature and humidity sensors. In addition, we are adding a View Details button, which will allow admins to deep dive into historical metrics that have been captured for the individual workspace. As we can see here, the max and average occupancy is visually represented to allow quick consumption. In addition, we have added insights, for example, on the percentage the room is occupied versus capacity, and also on the total time the room has been utilized during the set time range. The total time metric allows admins to capture absolute usage of the workspace and not just when the device is being utilized. If we switch over to the Environmental tab, we can quickly analyze the sound within the workspace. As we can see on the example, the air conditioner in the office was turned on at around 6 a.m., which triggered an increase in the average ambient noise in the workspace. If we switch to the temperature, we can also see a dip in temperature which corresponds with the ambient noise increase. We can also see the minimum and maximum temperature within a set time period. If you need to go deeper, we can get the raw data points for the last 2 hours directly within Control Hub. Do you work in Fahrenheit and not Celsius? Do not worry. We have you covered with a way to switch to Fahrenheit. Finally, let's check out the relative humidity. We can see over the last 7 days a decrease in relative humidity, which has helped us get from poor to excellent. Information about the sensors and the thresholds are available natively within the platform. The thresholds currently are based on global building wellness standards, which allows for consistency when comparing against facility data which might already exist within your company. Now with Workspace Analytics, it's time to take control of your workplace.
Thank you, Rich, for this very nice demo.
So how are we going to get these sensors into our existing products?
Good questions, and that's a nice segue into a new device that we are launching today, the Webex Room Navigator. So the Navigator is our newest generation of touch panels for our video systems. And they come in two versions. I have them here. So you have this one, which is a table version, and this one, which is a wall version. First thing we can observe here compared to the previous generation in that we got rid of those physical buttons. Right? So now you have this more sleek design and all the buttons are going to be inside the user interface. So that's one main element. This model here, as you can see, has a wall mount. You can mount it on glass or dry walls or thick walls. And it also has an LED at the bottom here. And we're going to see later on what's that used for. And before we do that, let's talk about the different use cases for those devices, because it's not only about the physical device, but it's also about what they are capable of doing. And obviously, like the current generation, these devices will be capable of controlling your Webex room device. That's something that we totally expected. Something we already had before is in room control. So that's also going to be here. Can you say more?
So we obviously have the ability to control lights and blinds, but also we can do a lot of other things. So for example, we can do problem reporting, other workflow integrations, and this can be out of the box with any Webex device. You can go into the user interface and you can create these custom panels and really modify them to your workflows.
Exactly, so that you wouldn't have to have a separate panels on the table to control the room.
One panel to do everything you need to do inside that room.
And now to the new set of functions. So on top of those already existing functions, we've added signage. So this device now can actually run a web engine and send the content that you want.
Exactly, and I think this is really critical for like corporate messaging or also for like emergency situations. For example, if you need to know where the exit is, you could have this outside the room and show you the next available exit. This is really critical to get this messaging out to everyone in a quick amount of time.
Yeah, so that could be a very nice combination with this panel, which is supposed to be mounted on walls. And we're also going to be introducing room booking. That's a little bit later in the presentation, but that's one of the new cases that these devices are going to support as well. And back to your initial question on sensors, yes, this device has a lot of the sensors we talked about before. So that when you take those sensors and you combine them with the sensors that are in the Webex room devices, you get the complete set of sensors that we just talked about.
Amazing. So can we see this in action?
Okay, let's see that in action.
Okay, these ones are busy. Yeah, this one. Okay, Webex, could you turn the temperature down 3 degrees, please? Okay, Webex, could you extend the meeting by 20 minutes, please?
Hey, what are you doing, Rich?
Oh, I'm publishing the Red Dot Award for the best of the best for Webex Room Panorama. Did you explain to the audience about the Navigator yet?
No, not yet, but that's right. The new Webex Room Navigator has also received its own Red Dot Award for design. Now, if you want to know more about the Webex Room Navigator, I invite you to go to this URL and read more.
So inside that video, we saw Webex Room Booking. Can you explain more about the room booking solution we're announcing today?
Yeah, let's get back to this room booking solution. So now you tend to associate the new Navigator and the room booking solution. It's not exactly quite like it. The room booking solution is a solution brought by the Webex platform. And it is accessible not only from the Webex Navigator, as you saw, but you can also speak to the system, right? Because it resides inside the platform, and the Navigator is just one element where you can get access to it.
So you're saying
different ways.
So you're saying I don't need a Webex Room Navigator to do room booking?
No, not necessarily. You don't need that. First of all, you will have the panel inside. You have the device inside, and you can speak to the system, right?
But what if I don't have a device inside? Can I use the Navigator standalone?
A good question. Initially, we released this, and you need to have a device inside and connect this room booking panel to the device. But eventually, we will also bring a solution where the new navigator outside the room becomes this independent device registering directly to the control hub. So you can equip rooms that have Webex room devices and those that don't.
So let's summarize some of the differentiators of the Webex room booking solution compared to traditional scheduling booking solutions out there.
Yes, good thing to bring that up. What you've seen also in the video here, different things. In the traditional room booking solutions are usually outside of the meeting room. In our case here, room booking happens outside, yes, but also happens inside. So you have the same room booking elements on the touch panel blended with the classic interface for controlling the video device. And that's kind of interesting, right? Because there are many functions that you don't necessarily want to see outside, like extending the meeting. Why would I interrupt my meeting and go outside the room to press a button and then go inside? And thinking that also anyone could be doing this outside, right, and playing me tricks. So when that happens, you have a notification inside and you can press a button and you don't even need to stop the meeting for that. The person on the far end doesn't need to know that. So it makes much more sense to have these features inside. While outside, it makes sense to understand what is the activity inside. So how large is this room? Maybe how many people are inside? And maybe what they are doing, so you would know if you can interrupt this meeting or not. So that's the inside and outside thing. And the other thing here is that you have different modalities. So manual is what traditional room bookings do. So we do manual. Yes, you didn't see it in that video, but you can also press buttons. But in addition to that, we can also use voice to control the room booking. And we can also automate it. So that's leveraging the video device inside the room and presence and people detection so that people don't have to press any button at all. But of course, that also depends on the kind of room that you have and how you want to provision it.
This is impressive stuff. A lot of announcements we've made today in terms of workplace transformation and how we can really make workplaces more intelligent. Let's summarize, a couple of those things and see what we,
Yeah, let's summarize it. So, first of all, we introduced sensors and analytics.
Yeah, so now we actually have insights that can really deliver value about what trends happening inside the building using not just the existing sensors, but also the new sensors we have coming as well.
Yeah. Yes, and then we have introduced the new navigator, which is supporting the new room booking solution. And last and not least, but thinking that typical room booking solutions are quite manual, and we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to be one new player in this category. No, we want to really differentiate. And how we differentiate is we understand what's happening in the room. We understand how many people are there, what they are doing. So we can start automating things and take a lot of these recurrent and boring tasks for users and start automating the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, when you look at this, probably you've seen that a lot of these solutions you can buy today from many different vendors. But that's the problem, right? There are many different vendors.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to integrate. It costs you quite a lot of money as well to buy and to maintain. So what we are doing today is giving you a possibility to have all these solutions from one single vendor and from one single license, the license that you use for the Webex room device. So that eventually you get a bundled, centralized, and cost-efficient solution.
That's absolutely amazing. But obviously, we would like to connect this with other workflows and other technologies. Are we able to do that as well?
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about is the Webex platform is customizable and extensible. So maybe you don't have the entire scope of intelligent solutions that you would like to have. But Cisco is working with partners that can deliver these experiences and use our APIs and our extensibility mechanism so that, again, from one single place and one single pane of glass, you can have access to all of that. But to know more about that, we are going to give the mic to Finn Helge, who's going to tell a bit more.
Hello everyone, my name is Finn Helge. The ability to use the Webex room devices to provide intelligent experiences do not stop with what we can develop ourselves. With a built-in sensor and intelligence, we can integrate with other technology vendors to solve new use cases. I'm proud to introduce 4 new use cases we are solving together with 3 of our Solution Plus partners, AppSpace, MaceMap, and Vyopta, which just shows the flexibility of Webex Room devices. First, in the hybrid workspace, where work can happen everywhere, it's hard to kind of keep employee communication and engagement up. Similarly, as employees return back to office, it can be challenging to communicate how to behave correctly. Use of digital signage becomes extremely useful. Together with market leader AppSpace, integrating with our Webex Room devices, we can provide digital signage into the meeting spaces. Going forward, we will offer this as a free service to our customers, enabling any meeting room through the Webex Room devices with signage. An important function of the office is to host customers and visitors professionally and safely, with minimum human interaction and touchless experiences. Integrating Webex Room systems with AppSpace visitor management and Webex Assistant can provide a welcoming and safe experience for the customer. Do you often struggle with finding the right available meeting spaces in the office? Using a map to navigate through the office can be the best tool. MaceMap is a leading indoor map provider and navigation experience solution. By integrating MaceMap with Webex Room devices, leveraging people count hybrid calendar service can give you an overview of the map of available room and occupied rooms in real time, a capability that is available together with MaceMap today. As demonstrated earlier today, we are also moving into solving new use cases together with MaceMap. With split room capability, when you reach the maximum capacity in the meeting room, you can provide an easy way to navigate to another available room for users that comes late into the meeting. This is a capability that is coming later this year. Today's situation is extremely challenging for facility managers, HR, and IT. The need for information to make the right decision for employee engagement, optimizing the real estate usage, and driving the operations is critical. Having Webex Room devices across the meeting spaces can provide collaboration capabilities, but also, as Arnaud and Richard pointed out earlier today, using the sensors can provide a lot of useful information about the usage of the meeting spaces. Vyopta specializes in providing analytic services, gathering information across multiple vendors and solutions. We partner up with Vyopta to provide them with rich set of usage metrics available from every meeting space that have a Webex Room device deployed. So these were 3 solution partners that we now have solved 4 new use cases with to provide a richer, intelligent workspace experience going forward.
Thank you, Finn-Helge. If you're interested in seeing these devices and experiences, have a look at our Project Workplace website at projectworkplace.cisco.com. You can see how these devices fit into different experiences and workflows. If you want to buy now, have a look at our Buy Now portal. Or if you're interested in talking to a collaboration partner, have a look at our partner locator, where you can find a partner closest to you that can tailor the experience to your workflow.
So the webinar is coming to an end now. Let's have a quick recap of the things we've been announcing and seeing today. First, you saw that we bring a tool for helping you design your optimal space. Second, we've shown ways of returning to the office safely with masks, for example, right? Or just touchless experiences. Third, we've automated users' tasks. So we made it very simple for people to finding rooms and book them and join meetings. Fourth, we regain real estate for facility managers, right? I hope that they will be very interested into that because we see that a lot of industries are willing now to reduce the real estate. And last, Finn-Helge showed you how you can extend and customize those experiences. Thanks a lot, Rich, for this.
Thank you, Arnaud.
You're welcome. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you for watching.
All right, thank you, Team Oslo, for showing us all these new solutions that are coming to market to help in this hybrid work environment. And with that, we've reached the close of our show. I'd like to thank all of those who participated with me today to talk about this new world that we work in, and to talk about how this new world of AI and sensors and data collection can create an environment we have intelligent workplaces for us to make better decisions. I encourage each of you to watch this recording on the futureofwork.webex.com pages, as well as follow us on our social channels to continue this discussion around the future of work. And I thank all of you for joining us today. We look forward to speaking with you again soon. And with that, we'll talk to you later.